She's being difficult, provoking, testing, manufacturing conflict out of nothing. And you're interpreting this as a sign that something is wrong. You're wrong. This is the clearest possible signal that something is very right, and that she isn't yet certain you're strong enough to deserve what she has to offer. As a researcher of human behavior, I've observed this pattern for years. The average man believes female interest expresses itself as gentleness and cooperation. That's a comfortable lie. In reality, her brain operates like a warship in hostile waters. It doesn't waste energy or firepower on fishing boats, on men who represent no challenge. It ignores them. But when a high-value target enters the radar, a carrier whose strength can't be immediately measured, the weapon system locks on. The sonar starts painting the target. The tests you're facing aren't attacks. They're the echo of her sonar, an involuntary signal that she's identified you as a target worth the investment, worth the risk. She's measuring your structure, your depth, your capacity to hold under pressure. She's complimenting you in the most primal way that exists. The absence of those tests, the silence of the radar, isn't peace. It's the deepest of insults. It means her selection system already analyzed you, classified you as harmless, and moved you to a category where sexual attraction doesn't survive. You've become a fishing boat, useful perhaps for secondary tasks, but completely irrelevant in the real game of mate selection. The man who is never provoked, who never faces the controlled chaos of an interested woman, isn't a respected man. He's an invisible man. Modern society, with its communication manuals and conflict avoidance training, taught you to want this invisibility, to mistake it for harmony. But your instinct, the pain you feel when she treats you with polite indifference, knows the truth. You don't want to be her safe harbor. You want to be the ocean she respects and longs to navigate. Your frustration doesn't come from her tests. It comes from your inability to understand that being tested is the only real invitation to the game you actually want to play. You've been celebrating the calm without realizing it only exists in waters where nothing of value is ever found. This understanding inverts everything. Your instinctive reaction to apologize, to logic your way out of the problem, to retreat and avoid conflict, is an automatic failure. You're trying to use a diplomatic handbook to pass a military stress test, and every time you do it, you prove to her security system that you don't have the structure required for the mission. You're inserting the wrong key into a vault that can't be opened with kindness, and wondering why it won't open. The fault isn't the door. The fault is your strategy. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why her brain runs this verification protocol without her even being aware of it, and why no one has ever explained this to you this bluntly. Tell me in the comments right now, have you ever felt like she was manufacturing a problem out of thin air just to test your reaction? I read everything. But to understand why her brain does this without her knowing, you first need to understand a brutal biological law that society refuses to acknowledge. That brutal biological law is parental investment theory. It dictates that the sex that invests more biological resources in offspring, the female, will be infinitely more selective in choosing a partner. The cost of a bad choice for her is catastrophic. And that's why her brain evolved to be a relentless risk auditor, a security system that runs its protocols without asking permission. The behavior of the people pleaser, the man who's always available, who seeks approval, who avoids any friction, is the first to trigger the high-risk, low-value alarm. I tell you this not only as a researcher, but as a woman. Passive, approval-seeking masculinity is a biological repellent. This isn't a conscious preference. It's a verdict issued by the limbic system before a thought can form. Your effort to be the understanding, harmless guy is being decoded by her primal hardware as an absence of leadership, a lack of options, and, most critically, an absence of any internal command center. She isn't rejecting you out of cruelty. Her security system is simply doing its job, flagging that the man who begs for access to the vault is exactly the one who can't be trusted to protect it. The mechanics of this failure are precise. Attraction and respect don't grow in certainty and predictability. They're born in tension. The tension of not knowing whether you'll hold your ground. The tension of hitting a limit. The tension of feeling that your life has a purpose larger than orbiting around her. The people pleaser systematically destroys that tension by delivering everything, always. He's the open book no one has any reason to read. What the female brain is searching for isn't a man who hands over his weapons. It's a man with loaded weapons under control. The metaphor matters here. A woman doesn't want a man's aggression. She needs to feel that he has weapons, that he knows how to use them with lethal precision, and more importantly, that he knows when not to. Those weapons are your non-negotiable limits, your ability to say no and hold it, your code of honor. The nice guy goes to war disarmed, believing his goodwill will protect him. Think honestly, how many times have you dropped a limit, rushed to answer a message, or swallowed a clear disrespect just to keep the peace, only to receive quiet contempt in return? You weren't demonstrating love. You were emptying your arsenal in front of her, proving your weapons were gone and that you were no longer a challenge or a protector. The long-term consequence of this pattern is devastating and silent. Not a fight, not a dramatic ending. It's the slow, invisible erosion of respect until attraction turns to dust. The man who consistently fails the stress tests, who capitulates and justifies himself and chases approval, isn't abandoned. He's something worse. He's kept around as a useful but desexualized resource. He becomes the friend, the confidant, the provider of emotional support. Her system categorizes him as too safe, too predictable, and moves him from the potential partner column to the emotional utility column. She may even like him, but desire, that involuntary primal force, is gone. And he killed it himself, through a pattern of self-sabotage disguised as virtue. He becomes the bank manager, keys to the building, but no access to the vault where real intimacy lives. The alarms that trigger this reclassification aren't all the same. There are 4 specific stress tests she applies, and each one requires a different kind of mastery to navigate. These 4 alarms, these stress tests, aren't random. They are the 4 horsemen of the relational collapse, a precise map of the emotional minefield she creates to verify your solidity. The first is the consistency test. She challenges your decisions to see if you stay grounded in your purpose. The second is the reactivity test, the creation of disproportionate drama to measure your stability under pressure, a direct test of your leadership capacity. The third is the availability test, an excessive demand for your attention to discover whether your life revolves around her or around a larger mission. And the fourth, the subtlest, is the indifference test. She withdraws to watch whether you panic and chase her, revealing your dependency on her validation. After years studying the evolutionary psychology of desire, I can tell you, these are not acts of cruelty, they are field experiments. As David Buss's cross-cultural research demonstrated, emotional stability is one of the most consistently valued qualities women seek in long-term partners. A man's value is measured by his capacity to not need external validation, and every one of these tests is a data point for her brain in that assessment. The mechanics of power here are brutally simple. The man who doesn't need her validation controls the dynamic. He becomes the emotional anchor in the storm she, consciously or not, creates. While emotional chaos surrounds him, the provocations, the silences, the manufactured drama, he stays steady, unshaken, grounded in his own value and purpose. He isn't reactive, he's the rock against which the waves of her uncertainty break and dissipate. Why is this so powerful? Because it demonstrates, in the most undeniable possible way, that his emotional state is not a derivative of hers. He has internal sovereignty. The man who panics at her indifference, who gets irritated by her provocation, or who abandons his plans to meet her demands, is communicating a fatal truth. You control me. My center of gravity is you. That may sound romantic to a society raised on participation trophies and therapy speak, but to her primal system, it's a certificate of weakness. Be honest with yourself now. When was the last time you made a decision or held a position from your own value, indifferent to whether she would approve? That anchor posture isn't a technique. It's the expression of an internal command center, the practical application of a sovereignty that doesn't seek outside approval. Your calm in the face of her test is the answer, but identifying the pattern and understanding the philosophy of detachment is only half the battle. The more painful part is confronting the damage already done. Looking back and seeing how your own actions, your attempts at being good, dug the hole you're standing in. Now that you know how to identify the 4 test types, in the next section we'll examine the exact anatomy of how 99% of men respond wrong, destroying attraction one capitulation at a time. The anatomy of your failure is brutally simple, and you need to hear this now. Every time you capitulated for peace, every time you validated disproportionate drama, every time you apologized when you weren't wrong, you weren't building a bridge, you were dynamiting the foundation of the respect she once had for you. What you call avoiding conflict, her brain registers as no backbone. I didn't learn this only in books. I observed it, studied it, and confirmed it repeatedly. Female attraction doesn't survive in the vacuum of male complacency. This erosion of respect isn't a decision she makes. It's a chemical process, a chain reaction you initiate yourself. Think of the dam metaphor. Every capitulation of yours is a new crack in the structure. At first, it looks harmless, a small trickle you ignore in the name of peace. But the pressure of the admiration she once felt is always there, forcing those fissures wider. And then, without warning, the entire dam gives way. The flood of contempt is sudden, total, and irreversible. You've been celebrating the dry days, without realizing that every small concession is condemning your own structure to ruin. You're not buying peace, you're financing your own collapse. The greatest secret they've hidden from you isn't a technique, it's a revelation about your real enemy. Your enemy isn't her, it's your own conditioning. Modern society handed you a diplomatic handbook to use in a biological war zone. It taught you to be open, vulnerable, and to validate her feelings as the supreme strategy, when in reality, that's the poison you take believing it's the antidote. There's an invisible door separating the ordinary man from the sovereign man. The first door, the one the ordinary man keeps knocking on, is opened with politeness, flowers, and apologies. It leads to a comfortable room of friendship and utility, but never to the room where primal desire lives. The second door has no handle. It doesn't yield to kindness. It only moves under the pressure of an unshakable structure, a posture that doesn't bend. It doesn't open. It's forced by your sheer presence. Understand this once and for all. She doesn't respond to you because you're good. She respects you because you're strong. And in the absence of respect, Female romantic love is biologically impossible. Comment below which of the 4 test types you encounter most. You'll see you're not alone in this silent war. I know what you're thinking right now. Relationships shouldn't be like this. This is toxic game playing. I just want a genuine, peaceful connection. These are the excuses, the comfortable lies your brain tells you to protect you from the unbearable truth, that your own search for peace is creating a war you cannot win. You're acting like a patient with a serious illness who refuses surgery, preferring to take painkillers daily. You avoid the immediate pain of confrontation, of holding a limit, of the possibility of losing her by showing your actual strength. But the painkiller, your daily capitulation, doesn't cure the disease. It masks it, guaranteeing that the final outcome is fatal. The peace you buy today by swallowing a disrespect, by canceling your plans, by validating a manipulation, it's the peace of a cemetery, the absence of life, of tension, of polarity, the prelude to the end of attraction. This isn't an opinion, it's the statistical reality of countless men who became roommates in their own relationships. Your search for peace at any cost is the fastest path to her indifference. How many times have you bought today's peace with tomorrow's respect, without realizing you were selling your own soul in the process? The truth you just heard is a weight, and I'm not here to lift it. I'm here to teach you to convert it into a foundation. The reconstruction of your sovereignty starts now, but it requires understanding a fundamental law. The hardening of your character isn't a performance. It's the natural expression of a man who has standards, purpose, and an unshakable awareness of his own value. The mistake 99% of men make is trying to appear strong, to act as if they don't care. It's cheap theater that her biological radar detects in seconds. Why? The answer lies in costly signaling theory. Maintaining composure, good humor, and direction under the assault of a female stress test is metabolically expensive. It's difficult to fake. That's precisely why, when you do it, you're emitting an honest, irrefutable signal of internal strength and neurological stability. Your calm isn't a tactic. It's proof that your value isn't up for negotiation. The man with a mission emits unconscious pre-selection signals that no memorized line can fabricate. He doesn't need to prove anything because he is the proof. The sovereign man places no woman, no relationship above his mission, not from coldness, but because he understands the hardest law of human nature. The world, and especially women, punish without mercy the man who abandons himself for someone else's approval. Female biology was forged across millennia to identify and feel repulsion toward the male who signals emotional dependency, because he represents a partner incapable of providing security and leadership under pressure. It's a survival mechanism. Your personal sovereignty needs to be an impenetrable fortress. Not a wall built to keep people out, but a foundation of pure rock so deep that no rejection, no judgment, and no loss can shake your structure. The man who inhabits that fortress doesn't seek external approval because he's already the ruler of his own inner territory. His validation comes from within. Now look at yourself honestly. Have you built that fortress? Or is your identity still a structure of straw, raised on the unstable ground of the validation others give you? That sovereign posture manifests in every interaction, not through what you say, but through what you radiate. It's the amused calm in the face of chaos, the capacity to absorb a provocation with a slight smile and hold the direction of the conversation, the certainty that your presence is the prize. The man who masters this doesn't react. He leads the reality around him. He understands that attraction isn't negotiated through logical arguments or emotional pleas. You don't convince a woman to desire you. You create the conditions for desire to bloom as the inevitable consequence of your structure. Think of fire. You don't ask fire to generate heat. You arrange the wood, provide the oxygen, create the right environment, and the warmth becomes the natural result. Your unshakable structure is the wood. Your indifference to the outcome is the oxygen. Her attraction is the inevitable heat. And this is where we arrive at the final sentence that defines this dynamic of power. Female desire is never requested. It's triggered. But what happens when, even in the face of this new strength, the tests simply stop? Many men celebrate this as peace. They're dangerously mistaken. You were blind, now you see. The peace you were searching for was the silence of a cemetery, and the harmony they sold you was the manual for your own emotional castration. The verdict is final. The man who celebrates the absence of tests hasn't found peace. He's just received notification that he was downgraded to a desexualized category, a useful resource, but an undesirable one. The scales have fallen. You see the raw architecture of attraction now, and it isn't pretty. But only those who see reality clearly can navigate it. So the call to action isn't about improving or learning techniques. It's a surgical call, an order to destroy the compliant, validation-hungry, weak man who still lives inside you, to kill the good boy they trained you to be, so the sovereign man you were born to become can finally take command. There's no glory in this process, only the hard, solitary discipline of reconstruction. She doesn't test you to control you. She tests you because, for the first time, she felt that she can't.